Hello, friends, and welcome back to the I Do Wedding Marketing Podcast. I am so glad to have you here. If this is your first time, welcome. My name is Nina Adio, and I am a wedding social media marketing expert. Here on the I Do Wedding Marketing podcast, I discuss tips and tricks to DIY your social media or the confidence to outsource it. But today, episode 26 is a very special one because I am interviewing Christa Graham of Christa Graham Weddings and Events. So, the story behind Christa and I is that we kind of met. We were both in similar places in the sense we both knew what we wanted to do and we both still had full-time jobs we were doing. I wanted to do I do wedding marketing full-time, and she was looking to do her event planning full-time. Fast forward to 2 years later, we're both doing that. And I really wanted Christa to speak to everybody about how she first established her wedding business. She's in the Metro Detroit area, and how she went from being able to do it as a side hustle to her full time now job. What I love about Christa Graham is that she knows her client profile. She knows it in and out. And so when her clients go to her website or her Instagram, I think they know right away whether or not they're going to be a fit. Christa says she loves working with clients who are non-traditional and a little eccentric. And Christa is just a joy herself. So stay tuned because in just a minute, we're going to hear what Christa has to share with over her 10 years of wedding planning and event planning. But before we get to the interview, I would like to introduce this episode's sponsor. This episode is brought to you by the Your Real Wedding Photo Club for wedding pros. This is a monthly membership where you will receive 100 high quality real wedding photos and even 10 real wedding video clips that are royalty free, landing in your inbox each month so you can always have content for your marketing. This is so great because it's so specific to our industry, and I subscribe to it too. That's how excited I was about this program. You're able to use the still images for your content, and you're able to use the video clips for your content, your reels, your TikToks, and however else you want to implement them to grow. But the best part is it's not a one-time thing. Every month you're getting these 100 photos and 10 videos. So now at the start of the month, I do get pretty giddy when mine arrive. There are 3 different payment options for you. I knew I was going to love this, so I went with the annual program. You save $97 and it's a total investment of $347. But let me remind you, you're getting these photos every month, 100 photos, 10 videos every month for $347 for the 12 months. Or you can pay every 3 months quarterly at $97, or pay month to month at $37 and cancel anytime. So I'm going to have the information to sign up for the Your Real Wedding Photo Club in the show notes of this episode. Or for easy access, you can visit idoweddingmarketing.com/sponsors. That's idoweddingmarketing.com/sponsors. Now, let's get to Christa's interview. Christa Graham Events, I am so excited to have you here today. So,
Thank you.
where are you coming in from? We're on Zoom, Christa and I, but you guys are just hearing us.
Yes, I am in the Detroit area. I live in Canton, which is sort of between Detroit and Ann Arbor, but work mostly in the Detroit area.
And it's an exciting day in Christa's house. It is the last day of school. So
Yes.
Christa's taking advantage of her last school morning.
Exactly. Last quiet morning here for a while.
So I'd like to just start off, I spoke a lot about you and your business in the intro, but could you describe Christa Graham Events from your point of view?
Sure. We don't do run-of-the-mill weddings here. We work with very unique couples, mostly Detroit natives and people who love the city. people with tattoos, dog lovers, something unique about them that they can infuse into their wedding and really make it stand out. Since it's probably business professionals listening here, I always kind of compare it to branding for your business. We're like branding this event, this wedding for the couple. And it should be an event where when people walk in, they're like, oh, yes, this is really them. This is their wedding. This is definitely their event. So we like to highly customize things and add in cute little unique details.
I love that because it probably takes a lot of encouraging and sometimes confidence for a couple to truly focus on what they want, because I feel
Mhm.
there's so much tradition involved with weddings and pleasing
Yeah.
your parents or pleasing your families. Have you found that couples call out that they responded to that really clear branding you have on your website and your social media about servicing those unique couples?
Yes, absolutely. It's usually the parents, the moms that have the more tradition in their head, and they're like, "Well, aren't we supposed to do it this way?" And I can't count how many times I've said, "It's really up to you. It doesn't. We don't have to do what has been always done before." Um, there are just a few things that I always say, "Okay, etiquette says we should do it this way,"
Mhm.
but as far as traditions or what we actually do at the wedding, the order of things, how it looks, it really is up to the couple.
Yeah, and I didn't mention this yet in the chat. I'll probably put it in the intro, but I do Krista's social media, so I get to see. You've had black wedding dresses, you've had dogs at weddings, just so
Mhm.
many unique and fun things. And it's just not only is it visually pleasing to see, but it's just comforting to see couples really getting to be themselves and honor who they are as a couple in their event.
Yes, absolutely.
So part of what I noticed, even, gosh, I guess it's been almost 2 years now that we've been working together.
Mhm.
And even before we started, you had very clear branding from the beginning. You had a very great, looked like professionally done website with your content pillars, your colors, your professional logo. You knew to start off with all of that. So I was wondering if you could speak a little about that and how you knew to invest in that, what process you took to do it, and what you would recommend to other wedding professionals starting out.
Sure. So I am a content junkie. I listen to podcasts in the car. I hardly ever listen to music anymore. Listen to audiobooks. I'm, always trying to improve myself and learn a little bit more. So that was the same when I was starting out too. I was trying to listen, learn about the wedding industry, what was, happening currently, what was the best way to do things. And following people that I guess you call them influencers now, but following people that were doing it the way that I wanted to do it and the way that I thought would be perceived well by the area that I was in. But at first, I DIY'd everything. You kind of minimum viable product. I built my own website. I chose my colors. I did my logo in Canva. And as I grew, I kind of one by one started upgrading things. And the first thing I did was worked with a branding designer, and I wanted my logo and I wanted it still to have the feeling of the one that I created. I just wanted it to be elevated and polished a little bit. And then she really helped me work on my ideal client and who I was marketing to. So I really think in all areas of life, even in my personal life, an hour of planning save so much time and execution. So we really worked on the behind the scenes kind of who I wanted to work with. And, she had me create 3 ideal scenarios for weddings, 3 kind of fake couples that I kind of built a story around and built weddings for. And then we went from there. So I think really thinking about and doing a lot of work on, what words describe your ideal client, your business, and you as a person, just really kind of delving into that personal growth and who you want to work with and figuring out all the pieces will help you create the visuals. And then doing that one at a time. Like I said, I started with my branding, then I moved to the website, hired you with social media, just a little bit at a time. And those little increases add up to a lot in the end.
And do you feel that, because I imagine it as a consumer, it would set you apart from the pack, so to speak, because the wedding market, it is saturated. It is. And we do believe in community over competition, but I think sometimes still you can see the difference when somebody has invested in their content pillars, their branding, etc. Did you notice a difference in your leads or the traction you were getting after you did all that?
Yes, I actually, so for the first full year I was in business, I kind of started my business in the middle of the year when I came to Michigan. And then that first full year, I invested in paid advertising. And I would say it paid off that year, but the second year, it didn't. It just kind of
Mm.
went downhill. I was spending more time chasing leads than actually booking clients. And so that's when I decided to go a different route. And I was introduced to you, and we've gone nowhere but up since then.
Oh.
Um, so yes, but the quality of lead has gotten so much better since I've invested in the branding and the social media and all of the things. I feel like the quality of lead is better. I'm not chasing leads anymore. I'm investing time in the consultation and really figuring out how we can work together and build their wedding the way that they want it. And if that's even somebody I want to work with, sometimes you meet with somebody and you just don't really click. But for the most part, I'm spending more time in it, building those clients up and trying to show them how I can help them plan their wedding.
Yeah. And I think that's because you have invested the time in making it really clear for your audience of what you do, who you service, etc. So people can really grasp right away. They should be able to click pretty fast and go, this is for me, and that saves you time as well. Like you were saying, with you're able to spend time in the consultation instead of chasing leads, because I think your messaging is so clear as to what you do and who you service. You mentioned moving to the Michigan, Detroit area. So I wanted to talk about how your journey as a wedding planner really started with that move, and how were you able to network not only for a new business, but in a new location?
Yeah, I kind
Amazing.
of built my business the hardest way possible.
It sounds like, a women's fiction novel, like
Yeah.
girl moves to new town, starts wedding business.
Exactly. So when I was still in Georgia, I had the advantage of knowing that for about 6 or 8 months that we were moving. My husband actually moved up here early to start his job, and I stayed back to let the kids finish school in their current school. So I spent a lot of time, like I've already mentioned, I listened to a lot of podcasts and things like that. I heard Natalie Frank interviewed on a podcast and learned about the Tuesdays Together and a Rising Tide Society. And I immediately found the groups in my area that I would be in Michigan and joined those. So I kind of got started networking online before I even moved to Michigan. And then once I moved here, I started attending in-person meetings back when that was a thing, and really tried to form connections. I actually became the leader of the Ann Arbor chapter after just a few months of being here. So that kind of opened up some more channels with me with, having to find places to hold our meetings every month. I got to know some of the venues around town, and, asking people to come speak. I got to know some other vendors, photographers, and different things like that. So just kind of layered over time, a layered approach of networking. And then as, COVID hit and the in-person meetings kind of dwindled out, still meeting people online. I had a florist for my last wedding say, oh my gosh, your timeline was the best I've ever seen in 10 years. Can we please have like a virtual coffee chat after this wedding? And so even doing stuff like that, just kind of taking 10, 20 minutes and reaching out to new vendors and saying, can we meet for coffee, or can we have an online meeting, just to get to know people. I think that's the best way to go about it, is getting to know people and how I can help them versus how is this connection going to help me or benefit my business.
I have to ask, as a wedding planner, is the timeline compliment like the best compliment ever?
I always show my husband, I'm like, look, I loved it.
So for somebody who's listening that hasn't heard of the Rising Tide Society and Tuesdays Together, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So it is a group that's really worldwide, that started with the philosophy of community over competition. And there are chapters all over the world. And you can probably Google, Tuesdays Together, whatever city you're in, and find the closest one to you. They do have a map on their website too. I am no longer the leader of that group, just the way we've rearranged the groups in our area. It's been rearranged a few times trying to figure out what works best. But I got so busy that I just had to take a back seat. But I still attend the meetings, and now they're starting to be in person again. So that's exciting. I have met my logo designer through Tuesdays Together, my website designer, and the guy who helps me with a lot of my verbiage and copywriting has become a very good personal friend of mine, and met him through Tuesdays Together. Lots of people I still have a connection with, even though we've been dormant for about 2 years now. So it holds a really special place in my heart because of that.
Would you like to mention who did your branding, logo, and website? Just because they are so good, maybe somebody wants to check them out.
Yeah, so my logo and design was Mixie, Mixie. She's actually the new leader of our areas, the Southeastern Michigan chapter, I think is what it is now. And then Anthony from Courage and Grow designed, not my full website yet. We're kind of taking it page by page, but the homepage and the about page are designed by him. Everything else is still the DIY version that I did. But we've made all the colors cohesive and everything throughout.
Yeah. And it's a dream, your website, because as somebody who's coming up with the content, I use that as my guideline so much,
Yeah, and I would say we spent, like hours, I would say at least 5 hours just workshopping over the copy and, what words are the best words to use. Some words either fall flat or just have kind of a negative connotation, and just trying to workshop what was the best copy for the website. And he kept reminding me, this is normal. Please don't feel like you're taking long to do this. This is completely normal part of the process. But I also like working with Courage and Grow because he's continually refining his process and, looking for feedback from clients and saying, how did this work for you? Do I need to adjust things? Does this make sense? So he really is cognizant of the client experience as well, being on that side of the coin.
And it really makes a difference having somebody who's willing to listen and understand your business. I know once I was working for a venue's website, and the website designer did not want to add more selections, like for date and guest count. And it was like, you don't understand how important this is. I know your idea is to make it as easy as possible, but there's just some stuff we have to have.
Yeah.
How important, because I do your social media, I notice very often in your weddings that you do, I'm seeing the same vendors a lot. So how was that kind of growing your referral team? Did that come from Tuesdays Together? Did it come from starting to do weddings in the area? How was that process?
A couple of them did come from Tuesdays Together, but mostly it's in the beginning, you have to trust that people are going to do what they say they're going to do. There's a lot of actually, trusting, but verifying. Trust that they're going to do their job, but, I have that contract there on the day to make sure they're doing that. I have proof of what they're doing.
In writing.
Yeah. But as you work with people over time and you realize, okay, this particular vendor goes above and beyond for their clients, or they do a really great job, it really makes my job easier to work with the same ones. And then, I have a handful of, let's say, florists, and they all do different styles. So when you get clients who want a different style, then I know, I have 2 or 3 florists in my back pocket that I know can execute. I know will show up on the day of, and we'll get the job done well. So it's nice to work with the same ones over and over. And then I'm always looking for new and exciting talent coming on the market to work with. And, honestly, a lot of it started with styled shoots. Everybody doing free stuff to produce a fake event, basically, to get photos and to get experience and to make those connections. And I figure if somebody's going to do a good job for a free project, they're probably going to do a very excellent job for a paid project.
Those styled shoots really are so important because not only are they so shareable, I think one of your styled shoots was featured in Wedding Day magazine, which is a
Mhm.
really, really big blog and account in your area.
Yeah.
But it everybody's it's everybody's best foot forward. Everybody looks their best at these shoots. And I find that especially for venues, because venues may not always engage in doing them, but my venues who do it always receive the benefits. It's
Mhm.
just such a great thing to do. So if anyone listening ever has the opportunity for a styled shoot, I really think it's worth the investment. Did the styled shoots you've done, did they start with you and you kind of networked out, or did somebody else approach you about them?
I would say most of them started with either myself or a photographer said, "Hey, here's my vision. Can you make it happen?" So I would say I had a big hand in the direction that they all have gone. Even the photographer that I worked with a couple times who has a vision. She has a great vision. She puts together great mood boards. And then she just trusts the process and how it flushes out, and that the vendors that we pick are going to look at that inspiration, not copy it, but put their own spin on it and make something inspired by, but completely original.
Yeah, and you can check out, I mean, Krista's Pinterest, Krista's Instagram, and you'll see some really awesome examples. I mean, the style shoots you've done, they're so varied. Where one was really romantic and whimsical, another was, ghostly and Halloween. And I love just using that every year. I don't care. It will
Yeah.
never get old.
That was one of the that was the first style shoot that I did in
Wow.
Michigan.
Wow.
I did one in Georgia before I left just to get experience, but the first one I did here in Michigan, and it just each part of it, just as we found the models, and I was like, yes, they're perfect. Like he had like it was a ghostly glam shoot was the name, and he had tattoos of horror movies, and I'm like, yes, I love horror
Yes.
movies. This fits in great, and just every piece of it as it came together just was like tingles all over
Yeah,
it.
it was very like haunted mansion wedding. It was
Mhm.
fantastic.
Yeah, I loved it.
Fantastic. Now, let's say for people listening who are not a wedding planner, but maybe they would like to connect with wedding planners because, well, first I want to ask, how often is it that your couples are coming to you for guidance for vendors? I imagine it's often.
Pretty often. Yeah. Even, down to, can you sit in on this meeting with me? Or, at the end, how much should I tip the vendor?
Mhm.
Or, it runs the gamut. Most of my clients trust me and that I know what questions to ask and all that. So I do try and sit in with most of my vendor meetings, especially my full planning clients. I'll sit in and on all of them. But yes, there's every week I feel like, oh, that's a new question. let me research that and I'll get back to you.
So, what do you recommend? Let's say someone listening is a photo booth company or a florist, and they want to make those relationships with a local wedding planner. Other than complimenting the timeline, which we know is a way, what is a good way to start? Let's say you haven't worked together yet. What's the type of message or contact you would love to receive?
I would say at the very minimum, make sure it doesn't seem like a copy and paste email.
Mm.
Most of those, honestly, I'm so busy these days that they just don't get answered. If I can tell that you've copied and pasted it and sent it to 100 different people, probably not going to answer it. But the ones I will answer seem very personal, and maybe mention something specific so that I know, yeah, you actually have looked at my stuff and want to make a connection. um, their aesthetic fits in with mine. They're not a very different kind of client that I have. So I know that they've really done their research and reached out to the people they really want to make connections with. And then like I said, having coffee chats or things like that. I love meeting for lunch, especially now that I'm working from home. Of time
Mhm.
to kind of schedule lunches or coffee dates or whatever, just to connect and get to know each other on a personal level. And then we talk business. Really, we talk more about personal stuff more than business in the end of it. But just really getting to know people as a person.
Fantastic. It's so true because Well, an example of a message would be, I love the ghostly glam shoot you did. Or, whenever I message a client, prospect really, or just want to connect with another venue, I like what they're doing. I always make sure to call out what I like about the venue, what it is, because this way they know I saw it. Because you can't copy and paste saying, I love that your venue is industrial yet surrounded by nature, because not everybody is,
Exactly.
just taking the time. And then by you taking that time, the odds are better they're going to take the time back to get to know you. You mentioned working from home now. So I wanted to ask how it feels to be full-time in your business and what that transition has been like.
It feels so satisfying. That's the best word for it, I think. The whole goal since I started, was to always be in control of my time and my money. That's the most important part for me, because that allows me to flex my work time around my family schedule. Like this week, with being the last week of school, my daughter's moving from middle school to high school. There's been all kinds of activities. I did their 8th grade field trip party on Monday. And then yesterday was her kind of 8th grade promotion part. I mean, it's just been the weirdest week ever, and trying to fit in work where I can. But every time I start to feel stressed about, oh my gosh, I have to do this for a client, I reframe that and say, no, I get to focus on my family right now, which is the most important thing. And I have time this evening to, work on my business, because that's what I get for being a work from home person. It has been so great. I have no regrets. Everybody at the school that I left, I worked full time at my daughter's middle school. All the teachers are like, "Do you miss us at all?" I'm like, well, I miss you as a person. I don't miss this as a job. No.
Yeah, that, it's funny. I have a Post-it on my desk that says, I get to do this.
Yeah.
And because we kind of had the same journey when we met. I had a full-time job as well, and was transitioning to be able to do this full-time. And the stress of having your own business working from home is such a different type of stress than when you're doing the 2 jobs and you're working for someone else, and there's less passion there. I would take any stress I get in this over that any day.
And it has allowed me to take on more projects too, not only because I have more time to work on it, but for some weird reason recently, I've been getting a lot of last minute projects. Like I have a wedding that just hired me last month that's getting married in about 45 days. And then somebody hired me for wedding day management. Actually, last night she signed the contract, and her wedding is exactly in a month and 1 day. So it allows me to kind of take last minute things like that, because I have the time to work them into my day and my work schedule.
Well, last minute bookings, I think, are really great. I mean, you're the person doing them, so you may feel different. But how do you find specifically the last minute bookings? How are they finding you?
So in particular, this one I just signed, she actually reached out in 2019 and hadn't started planning at all. And then has rescheduled twice because of COVID. And then I guess at the last minute, she's like, oh crap, I need somebody to help me pull everything together at the end. So she had found me, I believe, through Google back in 2019. We were trying to rack our brains and try and remember that. And I think we settled on she found me through a Google search. Most people find me through Instagram these days, especially since you took it over.
Thank you for that.
And you do such a fabulous job of sounding like me. Like every month when you send me the posts, I'm like, oh my gosh, how does she do it again? She sounds like
that's my timeline compliment. One time I think it was only like our 2nd or 3rd month, and you said, it sounds like I am saying this. And that I always keep in my head, because when we first started, I did almost an interview like this. But it was all about personal things you liked. And it really helped me to just tap into you and who you are, and kind of put on the Christa hat. But also I feel because you're so organized, because your website is so clear, because I mean, when you sent me all your information, I was like, this is someone I would trust with the most expensive investment of my life. Like, because you had everything so organized that I was like, wow, I would trust her with my wedding. I would trust her with my will. I would trust her with anything. So that was really huge. And I don't know, you just seem very easygoing too, which is great. You seem like you have a lot of trust, which I actually wanted to ask you about. How are you able to develop trusting someone else to write and represent your business, even though you are approving anything I do? You are trusting me with access to your profile and creating things, and that can't necessarily be easy.
Yeah, I think very baseline, you were recommended to me by somebody that I already had a connection with. So Latasha James, if anybody knows.
She's fabulous. She's
Yes, love her.
fabulous.
I actually, when I was moving to Michigan, I found her because I was looking on YouTube for Detroit vlogs. Like, let me see what regular Detroit people do when they live in Michigan. So she recommended you. So that was a compliment just off the get-go, from the get-go. But I think as a person, I don't know if it's my psychology degree or if it's just how I am, but I can get a vibe from somebody, even virtually. We've never met in person,
True.
which
Yeah.
hopefully we will someday.
Yeah.
But I think I can get a vibe from somebody, and I can tell if they're a good person and somebody I should work with. And I got that from you. So from day one, I have felt confident and trusted you to take care of my social media like it was your own.
And it makes such a difference, because when somebody trusts you, it's just that much easier to create. You can apply it. You don't have to apply it to social media, just visualize it anyway. I'm sure it's the same with your couples. If they don't trust you, it makes it that much harder, I think, personally, to deliver, because there's just that worry and that stifling instead of letting the creative genius, flow. Term I get from you is always zone of genius. Like, that's how you refer to wedding planning and whatnot. And so I'm wondering, how did you learn? Because it was still while you were part-time with the wedding planning. What made you realize investing in social media was a step you wanted to take?
So I think I mentioned that I invested in paid advertising with a couple of the big wedding groups. Everybody knows who I'm talking about. And I just felt like the leads I were getting through social media was a more genuine connection. They came in with more of a baseline knowledge about who I was and who I wanted to work with and what type of weddings that I like doing. So we almost got off on the right foot, as if we were already friends or already knew each other a little bit, versus the couples from kind of a cold outreach, if you will, from one of those big box sites. I had to do a lot of work to realize, is this a person that I'm going to work well with? Are they going to like me? Are they going to trust me in this process? So I shifted my thinking in, how do I want to get clients, not from paying these big sites, but working with a social media manager. And my initial thought was paid ads on Instagram and Facebook, and you kind of steered me in a more organic direction, which I'm glad you did, because it's been great. And almost immediately, I would say, I think we started working maybe at the end of the year, maybe fall of the year, and then by January, I would say all of my leads were pretty much coming from Instagram. And I've had, even from the beginning, I've had a pretty high success rate of, if I could meet with somebody in person or face-to-face virtually, I can convert it to a sale. So, almost all of the people I was getting from Instagram were becoming clients.
That's great. And I think a lot of it with Instagram is, it's very hard to get somebody to stop their scroll. So when somebody stops the scroll to either visit your website and fill out a contact form, or to send you a message, it's like, all right, we got half the battle. You know what I mean? Once, and then it's all on, you and meeting. And then it looks like you have a really good success rate with converting from there. So that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
And a lot of clients actually mention, I just loved your Instagram post here. I had a client last weekend pull out her phone and show her fiance, like, look, this is what she does. Look at all these beautiful things.
Oh, that must have felt great. That was
Yeah.
like, and it just gives sometimes you just get those little nuggets that prove that there's a purpose for it all.
Yeah.
And,
Especially all the work that you do. Like I was talking about the planning part and the
mm,
workshopping different copy and things like that. When something pans out like that and somebody tells you, oh, I loved what you said here. And you're like, yes, it was all worth it.
yes,
All the
exactly.
mental work that I did, it was
Oh
all worth
yeah,
it.
because sometimes, you'll look at a sentence for 20 minutes and rewrite it and rechange it.
Yeah.
So I want to ask also about, and just as far as the transition to going full time, how did you personally know you were ready to do that?
I think personally, I knew when it was time was when my workload was getting to be overwhelming, in addition to my full-time job. Um, COVID really helped put that into perspective because I did work for a school. So I did get paid the whole time that schools were closed, which is great. But it allowed me to structure my day in a way that mimicked what it would be like to work from home in my business. And being able to feel that and see that before it happened was a blessing. And it just kind of propelled me to work harder and move my business further, so that once was able to replace my income, which isn't $1 million. I always like to say that I worked for a school system. I did not make $1 million a year. Um, so it didn't take much. It was just a little bit of pushing and a little bit more to get to that number. But once I was able to show my husband, look, I'm making the same in my business as I am in my day job. Something has to give. I was able to, convince him, and then we were all comfortable for me to quit.
That's great. And I think that's good advice about kind of knowing your numbers. Because for some people, it may be like, if I'm full time and I can focus on booking 5 additional weddings, I'll be
Yeah.
able to overcome my job or whatever your number is. And
Mhm.
knowing what that is, I mean, I really love visualizing and having a set goal. And I really think, with focus, that it's something that can totally happen. So what advice do you have for somebody who's kind of in that place of getting ready to take the plunge and go for it full time?
Yeah. I would say definitely know your numbers, know what's comfortable for you. I am fortunate that I do have support at home. I have a husband who has a good job and makes good money. And so worst case scenario, if my business flopped and I made zero from then on, and had to go back to work, at least I knew our bills were going to be paid and we were going to be eating every night. So that was a definite plus. I don't like to infer or make people think that I'm doing this all on my own. I do have support, so that's the most number one thing is make sure your basic living expenses and all
Yeah.
of that is going to be met. We don't want anybody going homeless. um, but really knowing what clients you want to work with, I keep coming back to that, but really knowing that and knowing your why. My why is I want to be here for my family and I want to be able to do things with my kids during the day, like go to their assemblies and not worry about leaving, a school office undermanned or, having to worry about that. Just being able to live your truth and live the way that is important to you and make time for those things that are important, at the end of the day is the best thing to think about when you're wondering whether you should go full time or not.
And you mentioned the client profile again. So I want to ask, because that I think was a really just big part of your business then and
Mhm.
today. So how did you create that client profile? Did you know before you started consistently booking clients? Did it come along after? What was that whole process like?
So at first I was helping other planners kind of with their weddings, and that was one of the first things I did. I guess I should have mentioned back at that question. I did reach out to other planners when I first moved here and offered myself, hey, any way I can help, let me know. So I got a variety of weddings that way, and um, seeing those types of clients, I was like, okay, that's somebody I definitely don't want to work with, or that's a type of couple I do want to work with. but I still had, the trends in my head, and thinking, okay, back then, that was 5 years ago, all white flowers and greenery everywhere. And it was really Amanda from Mixie who did my logo. She really was like, no, that is not you. Why are you telling me those are the kind of
Mhm.
weddings you want to do? That is not you. Let's workshop this a little bit more. So she had me do the 3 ideal clients and the 3 ideal weddings, and I put together like a mood board for each one, and told like their backstory, and that really fleshed out the types of people that I wanted to work with and the types of clients that would fit my business aesthetic. So doing little exercises like that really helps to flesh that out.
I love that. It's almost, vision boarding the dream wedding you're working on.
Yeah.
I
And
love
it's
it.
so funny. It's so weird. It's another one of those moments you're like, oh, that was really worth it. Is I will all 3 of those couples have materialized, and like the real couple have hired me to
Wow.
do their wedding. So
I love it.
it's
I
so
love it.
strange,
The
but
power
it
of
really works.
intention.
Exactly.
And also, so you mentioned how you would message other planners, but right now your team is growing. So what has that been like? Are you having assistant planners, and what's it like going from solo to a team?
It's really exciting. Again, all the education and podcasts and everything I've learned, I did a team building intensive through the Abundance Group at the beginning of this year. Um, just learning about all the ins and outs of building a team and leadership, and here's how to make sure you're always going to be able to pay your people, because that was my one concern, was what if
Mm.
I get to a point where I am struggling paying everybody. So what I decided for this year was to hire independent contractors to be my assistants at each wedding. I have one assistant that I've worked with for a year now, another one that came in kind of halfway through last year, and then I'm hiring probably 2 or 3 more. I have a group interview set up with 6 or 8 people that are interested in a couple weeks, and I'm just excited to grow it. I have the vision of what my company is going to be way in the future, and I'm just excited to see the little pieces start to fall into place, and to know that the people that I hire to build my business and join my business are going to be on the same page and help me build that dream.
I'm getting like teary eyed as you speak about all this, because it's just, you're doing it and you've been doing it. And, you're also, because I can see, through doing your social and just how kind you are to all the people who do message you or inquire. And even the job listing you had posted was so detailed and nice. And it mentioned like a welcome lunch and all this stuff. And I was like, wow, like it just feels like such a great environment.
I've worked in several different industries. I'm trying to figure out who I was and who I wanted to be over my adulthood. But really, I have to credit that to I worked in hospital pharmacy for a long time. And the first hospital I worked for had more of a, we're a team. You're not our employees, we're a team. Kind of, it felt more like a family atmosphere than going to work, to be honest. And I really want to cultivate that in my business too.
I love that. I love it. I really do. So I have some kind of rapid fire fill in the blanks if
Okay.
you're up for it. Some of them I'm
Yes.
going to add in on the fly right now, which
Okay.
is if I could only have one podcast to listen to for an entire road trip, it would be.
Stuff you should know.
Ooh, okay, okay. I know a consult call is going well when.
When the couple is excited about their wedding, they actually want to have their wedding.
I couldn't have done my business without.
Other people supporting me and helping me along the way.
I wish more couples would.
Embrace color.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Never go to a wedding without.
Water,
Mhm.
a change of shoes, and ibuprofen.
There you go. The audiobook that changed my life is.
Oh gosh, I listened to so many.
I know I added it in because you mentioned it.
I would have to say probably the 4 Hour Work Week, which I think was the very first audiobook I ever downloaded. And not even necessarily for the things that he said specifically, but just the idea that you can build your own schedule and your own, you build your life to kind of mimic what's important in your, what you
That.
want to focus on.
I haven't read that one yet. My first audiobook was You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay.
Okay.
That's a good one.
That's a good one too. Yeah.
So how can our audience find you online or connect with you further, or even inquire about working with you if they're looking for a planner in your area?
Yeah. So my website is christagraham.com. It's CHRISTAGRAHAM.com. Instagram is Christagram_events. Go look at Nina's wonderful work. And on Facebook, it's Christagram Events.
Fantastic. And I'll have that all linked in the podcast episode show notes. Christa, this was just so fun and inspiring. And I think we need to do video calls more, whether we're recording them or not.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for being here, Christa.
Thank you, Nina.
I hope you guys were as inspired by Christa's story and are working together and everything she spoke about as I was. I think Christa really is an example to me of how preparation meets opportunity. Christa really was prepared to next level in her business, and you can see she did it piece by piece. She didn't invest in, the ultimate branding expert. It came right away, it came over time. And so do what you can as you can do it. And that's what Christa did. She kept reinvesting, and maybe with each time she was able to give a little more, which I think is great. Also, it's another example of just never to underestimate the power of networking, and especially of networking online, because that's how Christa and I connected. Christa connected with Latasha James, who we mentioned in that interview, who is such a great YouTube and Instagram presence. So definitely check her out. But she met her just to network as somebody who was working and living in Detroit. Then Latasha had been my coach at the time. So Latasha introduced Christa and I to work together. But what also isn't mentioned is that then Christa worked with Latasha for her wedding. So this just caused so many connections just through one networking referral. So I thought that's really cool as well. Also, it's another example of just never to underestimate the power of networking, and especially of networking online, because that's how Christa and I connected. Christa connected with Latasha James, who we mentioned in that interview, who is such a great YouTube and Instagram presence. So definitely check her out. But she met her just to network as somebody who was working and living in Detroit. Then Latasha had been my coach at the time. So Latasha introduced Christa and I to work together. But what also isn't mentioned is that then Christa worked with Latasha for her wedding. So this just caused so many connections just through one networking referral. So I thought that's really cool as well. Don't forget to also check out the Rising Tide Society, which we spoke about a lot in this interview together. The Rising Tide Society is now owned by Honeybook. So you'll be able to check them out through Honeybook, or you can visit their Instagram, which is at Rising Tide Society. From there, the second Tuesday of every month is when each local chapter will host their Tuesday together. So, as Christa recommended, look into your local chapter of doing Tuesdays together to meet some new people in your area with like minded businesses and passions. The next interview we're going to be having on the I Do Wedding Marketing podcast is with Eileen Joy. She is a money coach, and she drops quite a few bombs. I'll even have a story of how at the end of the interview, she is able to call me out on my money story that kept coming up. And you can check her out on Instagram as we prepare for that episode to come up. She is at Eileen Joy Money Coach on Instagram, or you can check out her podcast, Moms Who Money. So that's going to be coming up soon. In the show notes of this episode, I'm going to have links to all of Christa Graham's information. And I'm also going to have the link for today's sponsor, Your Real Weddings Photo Club for Wedding Pros. Thank you for allowing this podcast to come into your Bluetooth speakers, your headphones, your car radio, wherever you're listening from today. It means so much to me. And if you enjoyed what Christa had to say, please let myself or Christa know, or consider leaving this podcast a review, as it really helps us get noted in this podcast algorithm. Reviews really help. Thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you next week.